they were coming down, and of course, then it was pretty much every man for himself. You know, we had in our squadron the second leading naval ace, who I think I would unqualifiedly say was the best pilot I have ever seen. And what was his name? Cecil Harris, and he was from Crestpart, South Dakota. And he was at Guadalcanal early on and had shot down 2 planes there. And then when we were in our squadron, he shot down 22 in the time we were out. So he had 24 planes, and those are all in full combat. Now there were some fellows who had a few bigger numbers, but some of those were shooting down pilots who were just untrained and were taking planes someplace, and they just sat there and shot them down. But he was a remarkable pilot. I've never seen anybody fly a plane like he did.
What made him so good?
Well, natural talent, I guess, and he was very much responsible for training our squadron. Our skipper, who was an Annapolis fellow, which a lot of the top brass were, was wise enough to recognize Harris's ability, and when we first formed the squadron, he made Harris the flight officer, who was responsible then for training. And the tactics that were by the book, kind of, was you came in and you come down, you tried to get on the tail of somebody, and all the while they were losing speed. His was totally different. You come in, you took them head on, and then you broke away, and then you would come back up, and it was a totally different type of operation than we had gone through in training. And one reason why I guess why the squadron was pretty successful, and well, why, I don't know. I can't tell you. I think all the time we were out, I think we lost 12 pilots out of the squadron, but his training was real valuable.
Was he with you in the air? Was when you your first encounter that you just described?
I wasn't in the same division. I would love to have been in his division, but they kind of, you had to spread out the available talent. You had some younger ones, and so you had to kind of place around. If you put all the good ones in one division, and the rest of them were a little short, so they just used good sense in doing that. But yeah, but he was on the flight. Yeah.
Weren't you assistant flight officer?
Yeah, I was assistant to him.
Under him.
Mm-hmm.
And what the advice he gave you that helped you escape getting shot down? Tell you that.
Well, when you came back after any engagement, there was always this and this and what you were doing, and something came up about the fact that more or less, I guess as I look back at it, you call it a desperation move. You always wanted to keep the enemy off your tail. You wanted to get on his tail. He didn't want. And of course, the Jab Zero was a lighter plane and could outturn the planes that we flew. So they said, don't ever get involved in a loop with them, because if they're out here, they'll turn a tighter loop and they'll be back and they'll be on your tail. And so don't dogfight with them. And so the first one that I got engaged with, I got in on the tail of a Jap, and he starts the loop, and I thought, oh. So I pulled up real sharp and led him quite a little, and was successful in getting him from doing that. But the maneuver, if you had somebody on the tail, he said, well, if you chop your engine, horseback on the stick, and stick it on his tail, and hope that this guy would pass you because and then you kick over, and you were on his tail. Well, that happened. And a guy making a run on me from behind, and I thought, what do I do now? And so I did try it. And of course, you're moving at pretty good speed on that, so when you chop the engine off, you slow down pretty quick. And then when you pull her up, and actually you're into a stall, which is a dangerous thing because you got no speed. But you went by, and I kicked back, and the guy seemed as close as you and I are, and I was sitting on his tail. So Harris we had talked about that just a week or so before, about what to do in a situation like that. You never wanted to be slow. If you're slow, you are a sitting duck. And so you would always like to have an altitude advantage, because in the plane, you could sell the altitude for speed. And then if you got speed, you can sell that back for altitude. And so you always wanted to be able to do something to that ideally. Didn't very often happen. But that's kind of what you want to do. So.
This is an aviator's flight logbook, and a lot of the entries in here, if you could explain a little bit, sort of logs, because these are I assume the zeros represent down planes that you shot down, but kind of explain what the purpose of this was and some of the entries in there, if you could.
Well, I guess I'm not privy to everything, but every pilot has to have a log, and it's to keep track of what you did, and even civilian pilots are supposed to have a log. But on this, anytime you come back from a flight, they give you the duration of the flight. It's one way of keeping track of the hours that you have flown. But it gives you the type of flight, whether it's a gunnery flight, a navigation flight, or some other type of flight, and gives you the time, the length of time that you flew, and that information. So it's just a way of keeping record of your flight and the plane that you flew, to the type of plane that you flew. So this this log is the original logbook was destroyed when our carrier, the Intrepid, was hit with kamikazes, and the flight information was burned. So part of this that happened before that has been just put together on the basis of master logs and things like that. But these are just a record of things that the time that you flew and what the purpose of the flight was, and it's something that's required.
And a lot of the missions in here are they're obviously various, and they're not all the same, but in many cases these were strafing missions, sweeps that you would fly over enemy airfields, enemy installations, trying to knock out planes either on the ground or any other assets that might give the enemy a capability to stop our soldiers as they were coming in on the ground. Is that right?
Yeah. The combat time, all that information is in there. It's recorded briefly. It would be on some probably some master logs that they have, but and these are kept. A pilot doesn't keep this himself. It's kept by one of the yeomen in the office there, and that's what he's kept track of.
Okay. Great.